In at number 10, Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato got tons of backlash after she tried to cancel a small business because she didn't like the products that they were selling. Demi decided to grab some frozen yogurt from a popular froyo place in LA called The Big Chill, but she wasn't happy with what she saw while in the shop and shared her disdain with her over 100 million Instagram followers, writing on her story, quote, "Finding it extremely hard to order froyo from The Big Chill when you have to walk past tons of sugar-free cookies / other diet foods before you get to the counter. Do better, please." Adding the hashtag diet culture vultures. This caused an online feud between Demi and the shop, where Demi called them diet vultures, while they said they were just selling products for their broad customer base, which includes diabetics, celiac, and vegans. The general consensus around this whole event is that Demi is an entitled Karen, and she needs to realize that the world does not revolve around her. Of course, her anger was spurred from her long struggle with food issues. However, she should not have publicly tried to ruin a small business, especially during a pandemic. In at number 9, Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan gained a reputation for being rude during a scandal with Meghan Markle, and there's actually a dating story behind it that makes the whole thing even more juicy. So apparently Piers asked Morgan out on a date before she was with Harry, of course. And rumor has it that they went out on the date, but Meghan ghosted Piers after, so this could be the reason that he is constantly critical of her. More recently, after Meghan's explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey, Piers did not hold back trashing her on Good Morning Britain. Before him and the other hosts could even discuss the topic, he went on raging about how the interview is tarnishing the reputation of Britain around the world and hurting everything the Queen has worked so hard for. He also said that he doesn't believe a word that she says. He later left the show after outrage against his comments. In at number 8, James Corden. James Corden seems really nice on camera, but is well known for being awful off set. His rep is so bad that he did a Reddit AMA in 2019, and it practically turned into a roasting session, with tons of people bringing up terrible encounters they had with Corden. Apparently, he goes out of his way to be mean, like advocating for lower pay for TV writers. Literally, why would a rich celebrity ever do that? I have no idea. Apparently, Corden is also known to be rude when fans ask for photos or an autograph with him, especially if he's on set filming. Members of his crew have also claimed that he throws tantrums over minor things and is terrible to work for. He's basically the male version of Ellen.
In at number 7, Mike Myers. Mike Myers had built himself quite the career with a successful run on Saturday Night Live that led to his character creations being adapted into movies like Wayne's World. Although when the actor starred as the cat in the film The Cat in the Hat, he was allegedly a nightmare to work with. His co-star Amy Hill spoke publicly about Mike's behavior, and she said he had his handlers dress his trailer and his area was all covered with tenting because he didn't want anyone seeing him. It was so weird. It was just the worst. I was miserable. I just thought it was really rude of him to not take us all into consideration.
A monster? Where? That could have gone better.
In at number 6, Beyonce.
From being a group as in Destiny's Child.
I'm sorry, but I answered this question already.
Oh, you did? Okay.
All right.
Beyond the shady looks that she used to give her background singers in Destiny's Child whenever they were off-key, Beyonce has also been known to invoke her diva status on more than one occasion. She's avoided eye contact with red carpet assistants and yelled at photographers for not getting her good side, and more recently sparked controversy at the Golden Globes. When it was announced that Joaquin Phoenix had won for Best Actor, everyone stood up. Everyone from Leonardo DiCaprio to the ever-so-rude Ellen DeGeneres, although Beyonce was noticeably unamused by the announcement and just remained seated, even though she was literally right beside him. However, Twitter was quick to call her out for this. One person tweeted, "Sorry, but I don't think this is the type of energy anyone should be praised for. I don't know if there was another reason for her sitting, but the fact that she didn't stand with everyone else, especially during a standing ovation, is rude, point blank." In at number 5, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen is the exact polar opposite of what you should do when pursuing a career in Hollywood. He carries with him a terrible offset and on-set reputation, and the debacle he went through in 2011 even led to his contract termination from the show 2.5 Men. For a while, he was all over the news for everything. I mean, substance abuse, domestic violence, and even when he revealed that he was HIV positive. With his history of flying off the drop of a hat and trying to get people fired who speak ill of him, Sheen has had a very difficult time trying to rebuild his career. Also, there was the major shade thrown when Ashton Kutcher took his place on the show 2.5 Men. In at number 4, Madonna.
So someone who knows about sound better come up here and explain something to me. I'm waiting.
If you thought Beyonce was being a diva, well, who do you think she learned it from? Madonna is the queen of snide and crass remarks, some subtle and some just thrown right at you. When the star appeared on the Graham Norton show, she was blasted by viewers for the way that she interacted with Sir Ian McKellen. Graham Norton had asked if they had already met, and while Madonna couldn't remember, Ian described a very detailed encounter, to which Madonna barely even acknowledged. In fact, she looked very annoyed to even be on the show in the first place. There was also another very awkward moment when Madonna asked Ian what he does, even though he literally just told her that they were on the same show together once for a charity event in Los Angeles. How dare you disrespect Sir Ian McKellen?
And finally at number 1, Michael Jordan. I actually didn't know this before, but apparently Michael Jordan is one of the rudest and meanest celebrities out there. Rapper Chamillionaire exposed a story of when Jordan was incredibly rude to him. The rapper met Jordan at a party and wanted a picture and autograph with him, which Jordan refused. Chamillionaire said that Jordan told him, quote, "I'm not taking pictures with anybody." Then when the rapper tried to explain that he was a huge fan and had just purchased a $7,000 commemorative Michael Jordan jersey, Jordan replied saying, quote, "You know what? I'll tell you what, I'll pay you $15,000 right now for a jersey from me and I'll take a picture with you." Jordan is known to be a businessman, but that is just ridiculous, especially after he had already bought a jersey. Like, that's crazy. Jordan was also apparently banned from a Miami country club because he was rude to an official when he was confronted about what he was wearing. Jordan's team later released a statement saying, quote, "I guess it's their loss, as MJ is a great golfer and a great guest."
At number 10, Jake Paul. Once upon a time, Jake Paul was a Disney star. It's easy to forget he was once on the Disney Channel because he's now focused on harassing boxers, but yeah, he did have a brief career on the network. Back in 2017, he was one of the stars of the Disney Channel show Bizaardvark, and though he and Disney got a lot of success out of the show, things ended on a sour note as too much bad press ended up with Jake losing his job. Around this time, Jake was often in the news being slammed and criticized for his stunts and constant filming because of his Team 10 mates, and he had been causing quite a number of disturbances in his residential area. Jake and the Team 10 crew were lighting backyards on fire and causing a lot of ruckus to the point where Jake's neighbors started issuing complaints about the noise and destruction going on in the area. Jake's neighbors had police issuing warnings and fines for all sorts of things, and whenever Jake would get in trouble, the media reported on it, and it all got back to Disney. Jake ended up losing his job all because of the trouble he was causing, and honestly, the neighbors couldn't care less. To them, he got what he deserved, and when he finally moved out of the area, they were thrilled. I couldn't imagine living next to the Team 10 house with all the fans coming around and the constant noise. Jake surely was not very hospitable then. At number 9, Catherine Zeta-Jones. I did a series of videos exposing mean celebrities, and one of the people I exposed was Catherine Zeta-Jones. I've talked about how she's known to be mean and dismissive towards fans, but those aren't the only people to be rubbed the wrong way by the actress. Some neighbors have exposed the actress for being pretty rude. One person even shared a story about how Catherine went on a vacation and was renting a condo for a short time while visiting a different city, and she specifically demanded that the other tenants in the building be banned from using the building's gym while she was staying there. As one would expect, this did not go over well with other tenants. No one wants to be told that they can't use the facilities that they pay to enjoy. Those tenants said that she acted very entitled, and none of them were fans of hers from that moment on. If you find out that you'll be living near Catherine Zeta-Jones, I would advise that you find another place to stay. Now, before I carry on with the list, I'd like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also head on over to my gaming channel Viper Girl if you're looking for some new fun gaming content to enjoy, and subscribe while you're there.
In at number 7, David Letterman. Several old interview clips of David Letterman's have resurfaced recently, and many are saying that he crossed major lines. One example was with Lindsay Lohan from 2013. She did the interview recently at a rehab, and Letterman persistently asked her questions about it. Even though she said many times during the interview that she didn't want to talk about it, he still kept pressing, leading her to cry. Next up was Janet Jackson. Letterman was pressing her about her infamous Super Bowl incident, asking her questions about how the wardrobe malfunction came to be. Right after she was asked about it, she replied, quote, "I don't want to relive any of that." But Letterman kept asking while Jackson looked very sad. And in both of these cases and more, Letterman was definitely rude to his guests and crossed major lines with them when they couldn't stand up for themselves. In at number 6, John Mayer. John Mayer is known for his sensual songs about love, but the image that you have of him in your head is probably not true, and he's actually pretty rude in real life. Mayer has spoken poorly about a lot of women that he's dated, including Jessica Simpson and Jennifer Aniston, both of whom still hold grudges to this day. And he said some pretty nasty nasty things about women in general as well, making very inappropriate comments about women and even going so far as to say that he only finds white women attractive and literally no one else. And speaking of all that, John has also used a lot of racial slurs in the past, saying the N-word with the hard R on a few occasions, and he actually never even apologized. So yeah, remember that next time you hear him on the radio. And at number 4, Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson has just made enemies out of the Paul brothers after he publicly trashed Jake Paul during his boxing stream. Before the Jake Paul-Ben Askren fight, Davidson, who was the host, went viral several times for mocking Paul during backstage segments. At one point, Davidson even asked a question that ended up getting believed in the broadcast. Many believe it was related to the recent claims by a woman that Jake forced himself on her. Later, Davidson also said that he should be in jail. After the fight, Jake and the entire Paul family trashed Davidson, with Jake saying that Pete will not be invited back to host. Jake's dad even said at one point, quote, "Can I fight that piece of shit?"
At number 3, Machine Gun Kelly. It seems like Machine Gun Kelly isn't just loud on stage, but also at home. You would think that he would put that loud rocker persona to rest while at home in his free time, but according to his neighbors, that couldn't be further from the truth. His neighbors have said that he's been known to host loud and crazy parties, disturbing much of his community, and he's also known to have joyrides with his friends on the block. Neighbors have also complained about loud motorcycles revving their engines at inappropriate times of the night, and he and his guests have spilled over into neighboring properties from time to time. It's also been reported that during parties, Kelly's guests have parked in neighbors' driveways and have blocked in many of the neighbors' cars as well. It seems as though he doesn't really have a sense of respect for other people's properties or quiet hours. At number 2, Natasha Lyonne. Orange is the New Black star Natasha Lyonne is certainly a nasty neighbor. She once had a serious altercation with one of her neighbors that she actually faced criminal charges for. In 2005, there was a warrant out for Natasha's arrest after she confronted her neighbor in a fit of rage. According to sources, Natasha banged on her neighbor's door, stormed into the apartment, and even ripped a mirror off the wall. The actress also allegedly told her neighbor that she was going to hurt her dog. Because of her actions, Natasha was hunted down by authorities and charged with criminal mischief, harassment, and trespassing. Luckily for her, those charges were eventually dropped, but she was ordered to pay her neighbor $2,000 in restitution. Reading about what that neighbor went through, I would have hated to have lived in that area too. Now, I'm not sure what brought on Natasha's fit of rage, but it had to have been something really intense to result in her causing so much damage to her neighbor's property. And finally, number 1, Ivanka Trump. Even the president's daughter can cause some terror in her community. Being high-profile people, you're bound to cause a scene wherever you go, and Ivanka Trump's neighbors had to learn this the hard way. Shortly after Ivanka and her husband moved to their new home after her father was elected into office, Ivanka's neighbors were already starting to complain. Because of her relationship to the then President of the United States, she and her family always had security in close proximity, and this caused a disturbance in the neighborhood because of how many people were following the family at every waking moment. According to neighbors, even having a walk in the park was a grand affair because there were cars constantly following Ivanka's every move. But it's not just the disturbance caused by security that rubbed people the wrong way. Neighbors also complained about Ivanka's trash, saying that she always missed the neighborhood garbage day and that her trash was constantly stinking up the street. She wasn't very considerate to her neighbors, and they surely hated her for it. At number 9, Stuart Rahr. Billionaire and philanthropist Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at a popular restaurant thanks to his poor behavior. After throwing a tantrum at Midtown's Nobu 57 back in 2012, Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at that location nor any other Nobu restaurants because of how rude and disruptive he was towards staff and other guests. It was reported that Rahr made quite a scene after not being seated at his favorite table. I mean, there were plenty of other tables to sit at, but this was his table, and those other tables just wouldn't do. According to sources, the billionaire was even caught trying to bribe guests by paying for their meal, which could have cost upwards of $1,000 in order to secure his favorite spot, and when he got caught, he fired back at a manager using some pretty colorful language. According to restaurant staff, he arrived late at the restaurant, and upon his arrival, he marched up to the table and demanded that the people sitting there leave because it was his spot. But the drama just doesn't end there though. He then sent an all-caps email which included some pretty harsh language to the restaurant executives and added several A-list celebrities to the thread. And then he went back to the restaurant to harass the staff even more. In the end, he ended up getting banned for life, and no one was quick to forget how rude he was that day. Now, before I go any further, I would like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video and also subscribe to Lindsay Ivan's brand new reaction channel, Peach. It launches at the end of May, so go subscribe and tell her that we sent you. At number 8, Ruby Rose. Now, one person that you don't normally think of as rude is model and actress Ruby Rose, but apparently she can be quite rude and disruptive at dining establishments. Back in 2016, Ruby Rose apparently caused such a ruckus at a restaurant that the restaurant's owner had to kick her out. While dining at the Rebellion Bar and Urban Kitchen, Ruby was really rude to one of the restaurant servers and threw a bit of a tantrum. She even threw french fries at the staff member. Ruby had a bit of a Karen moment that day because she was upset about how long she had been waiting for her meal. According to Ruby, she had been waiting in the restaurant for over 90 minutes for her food, which would already anger someone, but to make matters worse, she was also allegedly being egged on by the bartender. The bartender was allegedly mocking and making fun of Ruby for refusing drinks, and they even made fun of her sobriety. So between the rude bartender and the long wait, Ruby just lost her patience and got really mad. She lost her cool and threw some food around, so maybe her anger was a little warranted because of how she was treated by the bartender, but throwing things at staff was a little extreme and very rude. What do you guys think? Was her outburst uncalled for, or would you react in a similar way? At number 7, Chris Brown. Chris Brown has certainly had his fair share of conflicts, from fighting workers at a gym to having outbursts on various sets, and even his 2009 Rihanna incident, but there's another category of people that the singer has also offended, and those are his neighbors. In 2016, the singer had a day-long standoff with SWAT. This all came about after a woman alleged that Chris had threatened her with a firearm. The woman was able to get away, but eventually the police were called about the incident, but Chris refused to let the police in his home without a warrant, so they set up camp, and that's when SWAT moved in. There were helicopters flying overhead, and the singer even allegedly threw a duffel bag full of firearms and illicit substances out the window. The standoff lasted for hours and had neighbors in the area upset with Chris for causing such a scene. He was eventually arrested, but if you think his problems with his neighbors were over, think again. Chris also faced complaints from neighbors after reportedly driving his ATV around the neighborhood recklessly and doing donuts in the street. If you're thinking about becoming the singer's neighbor, just don't. At number 6, Drake. Drake may be Canadian, but he surely doesn't have that polite Canadian energy. Drake once made enemies with his neighbors in Hidden Hills, California, when they started making noise complaints in response to the rapper's loud and extravagant parties. According to those in the neighborhood, Drake's parties would often go until very early in the morning, causing many of them to lose sleep. After receiving one too many noise complaints, Drake took action, but not in a way that anyone was expecting. Instead of dialing back the parties and being more respectful of the noise level in the neighborhood, Drake decided that flexing was the best solution, so he bought the house next door. He spent $2.8 million to simply expand his land so that those in the immediate vicinity wouldn't have to deal with his mess. He didn't want to be accountable to anyone, so he just bought his way out of the problem. I mean, that is one easy way of handling things, but I'm sure it would have been cheaper to just turn the music down. At number 4, Taylor Swift. Even though she's known for being pretty nice to people, apparently she's still managed to anger her neighbors. Really, you can't please everyone, but in this case, Taylor's actions caused a major inconvenience to the people around her. In 2013, Taylor made her neighbors pretty upset when she made some additions to her Rhode Island home. Taylor was looking to build a huge wall around her property, but to do that, she needed to have some coastline rocks moved out of the way. This disturbed the surrounding area, and neighbors weren't happy. Taylor's representative said that the movement of the rocks wasn't her choice, but that it was the government who asked her to move the rocks that had drifted into the ocean back to her property line. This was a lot of land disturbance just to build a big wall. Neighbors were not happy about the wall itself because they said that it had taken away the public access that they had enjoyed for years. I think it's safe to say that Taylor had an unpleasant welcome to the neighborhood. At number 3, Britney Spears. Looking back on it now, this isn't something that should have been made fun of in the media, but back in 2007, during her public fall from grace, Britney Spears was berated by the public after she put on quite a spectacle while dining at the Chateau Marmont. Britney was seen as a rude and unruly guest, as diners were shocked to see Britney smearing her face with gourmet food in a show of inappropriate behavior. As a result, she was removed from the premises and subsequently banned from the restaurant. People who witnessed Britney's behavior said that they wouldn't even expect this kind of behavior from a teenager, calling Britney's display childish and uncalled for, and even added that royalty had dined at the Chateau Marmont Marmont, saying that her behavior was absolutely unacceptable. Apparently, when Britney arrived at the hotel, she looked out of it, but of course, instead of helping her, everyone just watched the spectacle and laughed when she was berated in the media because of it. On top of all the other names Britney was being called at the time, rude became a new way to describe the struggling pop star. At number 2, Lea Michele. I think we all know by now that Lea Michele is a rude celebrity. We learned this last year when she was exposed by countless co-workers for her horrible on-set behavior, but she's also been exposed by restaurant staff for being a rude guest. One waiter's horror story of serving the actress tells us that she was once continuously harassing them while helping her order, while she made fun of them while they were trying to explain the dish's ingredients. Lea apparently insisted that she didn't understand what the waiter was saying, and then went on to complain to several of the restaurant's managers and higher-ups. To make matters more Karen-y, Lea also apparently sent her father to go knock on the kitchen window to berate the cooks 20 minutes after they ordered, demanding that they receive their food because they had been waiting for, quote, hours. This rude behavior doesn't really surprise me coming from Lea, because after hearing her former co-workers' horror stories, I now realize that with Lea, anything is possible. And finally, at number 1, Kendall Jenner. Being that she is a member of the Jenner family, rude behavior doesn't really surprise me. Back in 2014, a story broke about how Kendall had been allegedly very rude at a restaurant, ending with her throwing money at a staff member. The story here goes that she and Hailey Baldwin was dining at a restaurant together when they allegedly left without paying for their meal. Their bill came up to about $60, so it wasn't really that much, but it still doesn't mean that you can get away with not paying for it. A staff member then chased after the pair as they walked away from the restaurant, and when they were stopped and asked to pay for their meal, Kendall allegedly pulled out a couple of $20 bills from her bag and threw it at the staff member. That was seriously rude and certainly uncalled for.
In at number 10, culturally insensitive. Jennifer got into a massive scandal after she admitted to being insensitive to the Hawaiian culture. Basically, Jen was filming the Hunger Games in Hawaii, and in the movie she wears wetsuits a lot, which can get pretty itchy. So in 2016 on the Graham Norton show, she admitted that she'd scratched her butt on some sacred ceremonial rocks while filming in Hawaii. She said, quote, "There were sacred rocks. I don't know, they were ancestors, who knows? They were sacred, and you're not supposed to sit on them because you're not supposed to expose your genitalia to them. I, however, was in a wetsuit for this whole shoot. Oh my god, they were so good for butt itching." Apparently, she moved the rock so much at one point one came loose and started a landslide. The Hawaiian people thought it was a sign of a curse, but it was just Jen being disrespectful. She tried to be funny and relatable while telling the story and didn't think she would get in any trouble, but people were angry at how nonchalantly she admitted to disrespecting Hawaii. After the backlash, she posted an apology to Facebook, but many didn't buy it. And at number 9, weight insensitivity. One thing many fans know about Jen is that she speaks off the cuff and rarely filters out what she says, which can cause a lot of funny moments as well as a lot of insensitive ones. One thing she gets steady backlash about is her comments about her own weight. Jen has been open about the toxicity of weight in Hollywood and says that she was often asked to lose weight before movies. Because of this, she's been quoted saying, quote, "In Hollywood, I'm obese. I'm considered a fat actress. I'm Val Kilmer in that one picture on the beach." Another quote said, quote, "I eat like a caveman. I'll be the only actress that doesn't have anorexia rumors." Many people take these comments to be body positive, and although we love that she won't lose weight for movies, she's also already pretty slender, so giving the middle finger to the man here is a lot easier for her. And when someone the size of Jen calls herself fat, that makes anyone larger than her feel even more insecure about their own weight. Like if Jen calls herself overweight, literally what am I? I know it's all jokes, but the self-deprecation can seem pretty insincere at times. And at number 8, biphobic comments. Another thing that's gotten Jen heat in the press has been some biphobic comments that she made about one of the characters she played. She played X-Men character Mystique in the movie franchise, and was shocked to learn that the character was actually bisexual. When speaking about the character's sexuality, she said, quote, "She has kids, she has night crawlers, and she sleeps with Magneto. Unless I'm completely wrong, I mean, she's 100 years old, she definitely had time for a lesbian phase." And obviously that phrase is gonna anger a lot of people in the community who've been working hard to break those stigmas, especially because bisexuality is not a phase. Jen also called her own style at one point, quote, "slutty power lesbian," because she had a pixie haircut, which is just wrong on so many levels.
At number 7, Usher. I didn't really think singer Usher was one of those stuck up Hollywood types, but apparently he is. According to a service worker who's waited on Usher on many occasions, he's known to walk into restaurants and other establishments with the intention of being waited on hand and foot. And not just even for himself, but for his entourage as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with expecting quality service, but sometimes that mindset can go a little too far. Even though he expects the best service money can buy, it turns out that he has no intention of buying, as he's known to skip out on paying the bill by either leaving before the bill is given or making someone else pay for it. He's also one of those celebrities who's pulled the "do you know who I am" card, as he's used that as an excuse to get out of being carded when ordering an alcoholic beverage. On top of that, he's known to be a pretty lousy tipper, either tipping nothing or tipping with a signed CD or photo. He might make good music, but he makes for a horrible dining room guest. At number 6, Tommy Lee. Back in 2019, musician Tommy Lee and his wife were thrown out of a high-end restaurant in New Orleans after being unruly and rude with staff members. According to sources from TMZ, the couple were looking to dine at Emeril Lagasse's restaurant when the couple got into an altercation with staff members. Tommy and his wife entered the restaurant wearing hats, and according to the restaurant's dress code, they aren't allowed to wear them, so they were simply asked to take the hats off. This is when things took a turn, as Tommy got very upset with this rule and threw some colorful language about. He eventually moved his hat as they were seated at their table, but things escalated even further. The couple were then confronted about their use of profanity in the restaurant because it was rude, and staff members demanded that they take accountability for their actions. This made Tommy even more frustrated with the staff, and after a long spew of profanities, the restaurant's employees were forced to remove the pair from the premises. They eventually found somewhere else to go, but their rudeness was certainly uncalled for. All that was asked of them was to simply follow the restaurant's dress code. At number 5, Ariana Grande. One celebrity that you don't often see getting into conflicts is Ariana Grande. For the most part, the singer keeps to herself and doesn't really cause much high-profile drama, but she has had her moments in the past, and one in particular that was very rude. Ariana was caught in a scandal in 2015 after being exposed for her behavior while visiting a bakery in California. Though it may not be technically a traditional restaurant, it's still an eating establishment, so it counts. Surveillance cameras in the donut shop caught the singer licking donuts while the employees weren't looking, and even caught her yelling about her distaste for America's eating habits. The footage was leaked and shared by TMZ, and after the footage went viral, the owner of the donut shop spoke out about Ariana and that she was also caught spitting on some of the donuts as well, and said that she was reportedly very rude to staff working there, demanding that the person helping her keep bringing out the pastries that the other employees were baking. As if that was all, the shop's owner also said that the donuts that were defiled by Ariana were unknowingly sold to other customers that day. So not only did she disrespect the staff and their baked goods, but also the other customers, though they might not have known it. At number 4, Kit Harington. Though he played a noble man of the Night's Watch on Game of Thrones, actor Kit Harington was less than chivalrous at a bar in NYC, resulting in him having to be removed from the establishment by staff members. According to a report from TMZ in 2018, the King in the North was having a night out at a bar playing pool and drinking to excess and being quite rude to people. During one of his pool matches, it is said that the actor got very unruly and belligerent and was asked to leave the premises, which he did. But a little while later, he came back to the establishment, and at that point, he had to be forcibly removed from the bar. Kit was apparently being rude and disrespectful to those working there as well as other patrons, as his drunken state caused him to act on some less than kind impulses. Since this accident, Kit has come out to address his excessive drinking, saying that he was having a hard time coping with the end of Game of Thrones. After filming wrapped on the HBO show, Kit actually checked himself into rehab for his own well-being and sought out therapy to help him cope with his evolving career. It's good to know that this event caused him to take a step back and reevaluate his choices, but people probably still saw him as another rude celebrity star in that moment.
And at number 3, Jennifer Lopez. I wouldn't classify this one as rude as much as just proving that Jennifer Lawrence can be very over dramatic. The feud started when Lawrence was on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and Lawrence shared a story from the Met Ball. Apparently Jennifer Lawrence and Jimmy Kimmel were very drunk and wanted to ask J-Lo to dance. Apparently they went over to her and she turned them down, with Lopez saying she just wanted to observe. And even though the story was lighthearted, it still made J-Lo look kinda bad for saying no. So J-Lo decided to set the record straight, and she actually came up with her version of events. She told Access Hollywood, quote, "I remember that we were at the Met Ball and Kanye was about to perform, and it was like a crazy moment. And then they came over and they were like, let's go dance, and I was like, no, I'm good right here. But I didn't mean it like I don't want to dance with you, I just meant it like it's so crowded in here, let's just stay right here." So she basically called out J-Lo on TV for no reason. And at number 2, rude to fans. Probably Probably one of the most bizarre things about Jennifer Lawrence is that she's admitted that she hates speaking to fans. It's so bad that she's decided to be really rude to fans so they leave her alone. Interesting strategy. When speaking with Adam Sandler, she told him, quote, "Generally, once I enter a public place, I become incredibly rude. I turn into a huge a-hole." She then continued that it's her way of defending herself, and that she acts like this to make sure nobody crosses any boundaries. And just to contrast how terrible Jen sounded here, Adam Sandler said he makes a point to be really nice to his fans, saying, quote, "My life's nearing the end. I want to meet as many people as I can." And finally, number 1, hurricane. Jennifer Lawrence has become increasingly more political over the years, and she was frequently critical of Donald Trump during his presidency. However, she got some heat after she made some comments about hurricanes. From the quotes that were taken, it seemed like Jennifer Lawrence was blaming the influx of hurricanes on Trump's win, saying that Mother Nature was raging. She was harshly criticized for the comments, so she posted a statement about the incident on her Facebook page. She wrote in part, quote, "My remarks were taken grossly out of context. Obviously, I never claimed that President Trump was responsible for these tragic hurricanes. That is a silly and preposterous headline that is unfortunate, because it detracts from the millions of lives that are being impacted by these devastating storms and the recent earthquakes."
At number 10, Hugh Grant. Hugh was once banned from The Daily Show after having a really bad interview that really affected the show's host because the actor was being so rude. Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, said in an interview that Hugh Grant was the absolute worst guest he'd had on the show. He spoke about how when Hugh was on to promote his film Did You Hear About the Morgans, Hugh was making a huge scene backstage and was just being really mean and annoying to the people who were working on set. Apparently, Hugh was allegedly going around saying that he had better places to be. He also got really upset about the clip that they played from the film, saying, quote, "What is that clip? It's a terrible clip," to which Jon replied, telling Hugh to make a better movie. You could really tell that Jon was fed up with Hugh and his attitude on the show. Jon went on to say that because of his poor experience with Hugh, he'd never have him back on his show. At number 9, Harmony Korine. I think it's an unspoken rule that when you're a guest somewhere, you should try to be on your best behavior. One person who really should have followed this rule is director Harmony Korine, who's best known for the movie Spring Breakers. There was once a time when Harmony made a number of appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman in the mid to late 90s. This was also during a time when Harmony was reportedly on a lot of drugs. Though he was a frequent guest on the show, his appearances just stopped all of a sudden, and no one really knew why until 2013 when Letterman revealed the truth as to why the director was banned from coming on the show. Apparently, Letterman caught the director going through Meryl Streep's purse one time, and that was just the last straw for the late night host. When talking about this fateful event, Letterman said, quote, "I went upstairs to greet Meryl Streep and welcome her to the show. I knocked on the door and she was not there. I looked around and saw Harmony going through her purse. True story. And so I said, that's it, put her things back in her bag and get out." End quote. After that, Harmony was no longer welcome on the show and hasn't been back since. Before we carry on talking about these rude celebrities, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Bobcat Goldthwait. I think this goes without saying, but don't go setting fire to things. Back in 1994, actor Bobcat Goldthwait was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during his guest appearance, the actor decided to just randomly set fire to his chair. At the time, Jay thought this was just a spontaneous bit, but in reality, Bobcat came prepared for this as he brought lighter fluid and a lighter that was hidden up his sleeve. Luckily, the other guest who was there that night, Lauren Hutton, was quick on her feet and doused the flames with a cup of water. Jay, understandably, was very unhappy with all this and banned Bobcat from the show. Not only that, but the actor was also charged with arson for this stunt and was ordered to pay over $3,300 in fines, some of which went towards replacing the chair he set fire to. He literally damaged the set, and if that's not rude, then I don't know what is.
And at number 7, trash reporter. Jennifer Lawrence got massive backlash after she was rude to a reporter at the 2016 Golden Globes. After she accepted the award, she was in the press room answering questions from tons of reporters. At one point, a Spanish reporter who was speaking with an accent started asking a question, but he was looking at his phone the whole time. Jennifer tried to joke around by telling the reporter to put down his phone if he wanted to ask her questions. She also mocked him after he mistook the event for the Oscars. However, it was pretty obvious that he was just reading his questions off his phone, which is pretty common for reporters these days. After her rude comments, hate flooded in against the star. People also gave the perspective that the reporter may have been translating his questions into English, that's why he was staring at his phone. It It also just rubbed people the wrong way that she assumed that everyone speaks English. And at number 6, paparazzi. Like many other celebrities in Hollywood, Jennifer Lawrence hates paparazzi. But really, I mean, who can blame her? And she makes a point to bring up her disdain for paparazzi whenever possible. Like in one interview with Vogue, where she said, quote, "If I were just your average 23-year-old girl and I called the police to say that there were strange men sleeping on my lawn and following me to Starbucks, they would leap into action. But because I'm a famous person, well, sorry ma'am, there's nothing we can do. It makes no sense." Jen has also talked about how she doesn't like fame and how fan interactions make her really uncomfortable. So that's obviously a big part of the reason that she maintains such a low profile most of the time. Halfway at number 5, Lindsay Lohan. Jennifer Lawrence has poked fun at many fellow celebrities over the years, but none was worse than when she made some nasty comments about Lindsay Lohan. While Jennifer Lawrence was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in 2015, Lawrence offended Lindsay Lohan and her family. It started when Lawrence was talking about how she got a stomach virus while filming, but she still kept shooting. Then she made the comment, quote, "I get like Lindsay Lohan grade exhaustion, but without any drugs or alcohol." And obviously those kinds of words will start a fight with anybody. Almost right after the show aired, Lohan's younger sister, Aliana, tweeted out, quote, "I never breathe life into negativity, but I stand by my family. Disappointed in Jennifer Lawrence, not cool." Lindsay Lohan then replied to the tweet saying, quote, "Thank you sister. Maybe who you're referring to should learn to support others like Maya Angelou." Lohan's mom also commented on the incident weeks later, so it's safe to say Lohan's family and fans hate Jennifer Lawrence. And at number 4, Lala Kent. This is another example of Jen talking trash about a fellow celebrity and then getting called out. While Jen was on an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, she decided to take aim at Vanderpump Rules star Lala Kent. It started when Andy was asking Jennifer what she thought of the cast of Vanderpump Rules. When the conversation went to Lala, Lawrence straight up called her the C word, along with tons of other digs at her. As a response, Lala tweeted out, quote, "Did Jennifer Lawrence really call me the C word on Watch What Happens Live and talk about my mama? B, you better pray I don't see you in the streets." And that was just the first of a long string of now deleted tweets. The shade didn't stop there. Lala went on the Juicy Scoop podcast and called out Jennifer further. She said that Lawrence had, quote, 2 failed films in a row, and said that she was the type of girl that would sleep with Harvey Weinstein for a role. Lawrence never responded to any of the shade, probably because she knew she was in the wrong.
At number 2, Mark Summers. When it comes to talk shows, sometimes you can never predict what's gonna happen. These shows are often used to catch up with a celebrity and just talk about life and whatnot, but sometimes these conversations can turn into brawls when the wrong thing is said, and this is pretty much what happened between Burt Reynolds and Mark Summers in 1994 when they were both guests on Jay Leno's talk show. The two men got into a heated brawl after some jokes were made that offended the both of them. Essentially, Mark Summers made a comment about how he was still married, while Burt at the time was going through a divorce, and it made Burt pretty upset. In retaliation, Burt threw some water at Mark, and that's what sparked the fight. It gets to the point where Jay Leno just can't keep the show together because his guests were fighting so much, and producers even went so far as to bring out pies for Mark and Burt to make it look like this fight was staged. After this, people got talking, and some people came to the conclusion that this brawl was uncalled for, and since Mark started it, he felt the most backlash. At number 8, Gwyneth Paltrow. A lot of people seem to really dislike Gwyneth Paltrow for some reason. Though she's never really done anything horrible to people directly, it is alleged that she's so disliked in Hollywood because she comes off as pretty pretentious, egotistical, and privileged. People don't really see Gwyneth as the average person or as someone that they can relate to, which a lot of people seem to find off-putting. The Goop founder seems to like flaunting her wealth and materialistic things and makes it seem like it's something that everyone else has or can afford. For example, her Goop website's list of must-have clothing pieces and other things include things that cost hundreds if not thousands of dollars, which not a lot of people can relate to having. On top of that, she came from a wealthy family, so being someone who's always been rich, she doesn't really know how to humble herself around those who haven't been as fortunate as her. People also don't like how she comes across as self-centered, as she seems to always talk about herself and how fit she is and how great her lifestyle is. She also has a diva attitude. She's been known to slam Michelin star restaurants, and if you know what that means, then you know she's got an attitude to do something like that. And to make matters worse, she's been known to demand that people clean and dry the shower at the gym after someone's used it because she, quote, can't touch somebody else's shower water. Yeah. She just has a lot of diva energy and can come across as quite rude, so I can understand why not everyone wants to be her friend. At At number 6, Gene Simmons. I think we can all agree that Gene Simmons is kind of outlandish. He's a guy with a lot of energy and no filter, so when it comes to interviewing him live, you never know what he might say, but you can only hope that it won't be too offensive. At one point, the singer was a Fox favorite, making regular appearances on their programming where they would discuss hot topics in the world and would share their opinions on things. They liked the guy and liked having him on their show, but after causing a stir during a meeting at Fox and making some rude comments towards some of the other staff members, Gene got banned for life, and it was a hot topic of its own. Some of the things that Gene said to some of the women at the network got leaked, and it's not something you would want to have said to you. Let's just put it that way. After all of that went down, the singer was not welcomed back on their programming because they didn't like the way he behaved. At number 5, Sharon Osbourne. Talk show host Sharon Osbourne found herself in some hot water earlier last year after she made some comments about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry that not only caused her to get backlash, but also lose a friend. Sharon Osbourne and Cheryl Underwood got into a heated argument surrounding Piers Morgan's comments about Meghan Markle. During this feud, Sharon backed up Pierce's comments about Meghan Markle's mental health, and this frustrated Cheryl because she didn't like the comments that were being made about those involved. The two got into a very heated debate that ended with a lot of drama, sparking a conversation about Sharon's ideals. She was called a racist, and a number of other accusations came out about how she's used various slurs in the past when talking about her other co-hosts. As a result of this, the network for their show launched an internal investigation, and that ended with Sharon being let go from the show. At number 4, Kelly Osbourne. Now, we just talked about Sharon Osbourne and her talk show scandal, but her daughter Kelly has also been in her share of controversies, including one that happened while on a talk show that kind of ruined her career because of a rude comment that she made. During an episode of The View, Kelly Osbourne really missed the mark when trying to clap back at Donald Trump, even though she was trying to diss Trump, and ended up getting in enough trouble herself. Just shortly before this episode aired, Donald Trump, who was at the time only a presidential nominee, was saying offensive things about the Latinx community and how he wanted to deport them. I'm sure we're all familiar with this one. Well, in a very poor attempt at clapping back at Trump's racist comments, Kelly said, quote, "If you kick every Latina out of this country, then who's going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?" What Kelly was trying to do was defend the Latinx community, but rather than stand up for them, she ended up offending them even more, as her remarks were interpreted as saying that the Latinx community is only good for being housekeepers, as depicted in many racial stereotypes. After facing so much backlash and realizing the gravity of her words, Kelly issued an apology saying, quote, "I want to start by saying I always take responsibility for my actions. In this particular case, I will take responsibility for my poor choice of words, but I will not apologize for being a racist, as I am not." At number 3, Jared Leto. You may like Jared Leto on screen, but off screen he's kind of a jerk. There's even a list online that tallies up all the reasons that make him a bad person. And if something like that exists, then you know something's up. Some of the reasons listed as to why Jared sucks so much include the fact that he's been caught being mean to fans, he's rude to reporters during interviews, and he's offended the trans community after winning an Oscar for his performance in Dallas Buyers Club and not mentioning the trans community in his speech, as well as undermining the struggles of the trans community after joking about his appearance in character. Jared has also admitted to lying during interviews whenever possible for absolutely no reason, and people found his Joker antics on the set of Suicide Squad to be a little mean because of the pranks that he would play on people, as well as the gifts that he would send to the cast and crew. Most of the allegations against Jared and his attitude are pretty minor, but add them all up and you get someone that you might not necessarily enjoy having around. But what do you guys think? You still want to be his friend? At number 2, Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera may have the voice of an angel, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she is one. Turns out she has a bit of a dark side, and a handful of people have experienced it. Other than being shady at Lady Gaga during their 2008 feud, where she called her some unpleasant names and said, quote, "I'm not quite sure who this person is, to be honest, I don't know if it's a man or a woman," end quote. She's also had some other rude encounters with more of her peers. When working on the set of her various gigs, she's reportedly always late, holds up production, and never apologizes for delaying production. She also reportedly has some beef with Adam Levine while working on The Voice, and they would bicker constantly. Christina is also known to be an absolute diva, and working with her seems to be a nightmare because sources say that she's very rude and demanding of her household staff and treats her staff poorly, insisting that they are on call 24/7. Christina also has had feuds with Pink, Mariah Carey, and even got mad at Mickey Mouse once. Yeah, she got into a heated argument with Mickey Mouse when she was at Disneyland in 2014 for her birthday. She wanted to take a picture with the mouse, but he was going on break, so instead of being an understanding person, she pulled the "do you know who I am" card. I mean, how can you do that to Mickey? What did Mickey do? And finally, at number 1, Bruce Willis. Actor Bruce Willis has had a great career making great movies and basking in fame, but it seems as though he's not all that great in real life. Apparently, Bruce is a nightmare to work with as he's gotten into a number of conflicts with others on set, and people just really hate working with him. Before Die Hard launched his film career, he was brought into stardom after working on the show Moonlighting alongside his co-star Sybil Shepherd. Back in 2005, Shepherd told sources that there came a point where her relationship with Bruce became really toxic and they clashed a lot on set. There was reportedly constant bickering and it was just a really bad working environment. But of course, Sybil isn't the only one to have clashed with Bruce while working together. Filmmaker Kevin Smith has also had his troubles working with Bruce while filming the 2010 film Cop Out. He told sources that though he once saw Bruce as his hero in past productions, that opinion completely went out the window, saying that working with Bruce was difficult. When speaking out about their time together on set, Kevin said, quote, "He turned out to be the unhappiest, most bitter, and meanest emo B-word I've ever met at any job I've held down, and mind you, I worked at Domino's Pizza. What an awful experience." End quote. Now I just wonder if something triggers this horrible behavior or if he's just always like this. At number 10, Kanye West. Most people see Kanye West as a little too extra. He's caused scandals like his VMA interruption with Taylor Swift, his comments about George W. Bush, as well as many other instances that have just rubbed people the wrong way. To add to that, he's reportedly very hard to work with. During filming of Anchorman 2, Kanye came on set for a brief appearance in the film, and though he played a small part, he left a big impression on the cast and crew, and it wasn't positive. Apparently, after Kanye wrapped on set, he refused to leave. He could have just gone home after he finished his scenes, but he decided to stick around. That's fine if you want to stay and watch other people's performances, but that's not exactly what Kanye did. Instead, he hung around set blasting music so loudly that it disrupted filming. People tried to get him to just leave, but he wouldn't. I think it's safe to say that if a third Anchorman movie were to happen, Kanye just would not be welcomed back. At number 9, Lea Michele. Lea Michele was exposed in 2020 for her Hollywood mean streak and for her terrible on-set behavior. This all came out following a tweet from former Glee co-star Samantha Ware, where she let the world know how horrible it was to work with Lea. The actress is now described as, quote, callous, rude, mean, and even a diva. But following Samantha's exposure of the Broadway star, other people have come forward with their own testimonies regarding Lea and her mean streak. There have been stories of Lea's microaggressions, but also stories of her spitting in craft service food that she doesn't like, refusing to work with people because they didn't know her middle name, requesting reshoots because she didn't like her costume, disrespecting other castmates, and having crew members apologize on her behalf, and so many other frustrating tidbits that just really show how rude and entitled she's been known to be. No one wants to work with her after learning about how much of a nightmare she can be on set. Before we carry on talking about the celebrities who are just the worst people to work with on set, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Julia Roberts. Even though Julia Roberts seems like a nice person, it turns out that she's a nightmare on set. Ironically, she's almost always cast as nice and endearing characters, but there's seemingly much more to Julia than meets the eye. Apparently, she's known to have a pretty bad attitude on set, which can make working with her an unpleasant experience. In 1991, on the set of the Peter Pan film Hook by Steven Spielberg, Julia earned the on-set nickname Tinkerhell as a play on her character Tinkerbell. She earned this moniker based on the production staff's perception of the actress. Apparently, during filming, she would constantly show up to set late, and even when she was on set, she would lock herself in her trailer for hours on end. She also reportedly treated people badly, and she would never apologize for her mean actions or behavior. Julia was truly the opposite of the pixie she was playing. At number 6, Amy Schumer. It seems like Amy Schumer doesn't really care about what people think of her. In a way, that can be a good thing because you learn to live your life for yourself, but it can also give you an attitude and prevent you from thinking about your actions and how they can impact others. An example of this comes from an incident from back in 2018 where Amy full-on stole a comedian's stand-up set. Amy was at a comedy club and up on stage, and an up-and-coming comedian was doing one of his first long sets, and obviously this was a pretty big deal for the guy until Amy ruined it. She walked into the venue and went to the manager to ask if she could steal 10 minutes of stage time because she wanted to practice her new set. Because the other comedian just started on stage, the manager said no, so Amy hit back with the, "But I'm Amy Schumer." Like that's really gonna do something. After getting refusals left and right, she decided to take matters into her own hands and marched up on the stage and just took over his time for a few minutes. I know Amy is a big timer, but come on, you have to remember what it was like to be up and coming, and that kind of behavior is just rude. At number 5, Katherine Heigl. A lot of people don't like Katherine Heigl because of how rude she is. She's known in the film industry for being pretty mean and having a diva attitude. She's allegedly mean to people on set, has high demands, and just has a very bad overall attitude. She's known to be quite critical of her roles and the material that she's given to work with, and she even said this when she withdrew from the Emmy nominations because she said that the material she was given for Grey's Anatomy didn't warrant an Emmy. That is certainly disrespectful to the writers, because for someone to say something like that implies that the writing wasn't good enough to please people, whereas the people at the Emmys thought it was worth an award. And on top of that, winning this kind of award looks good for the team, but Katherine obviously didn't think of that. She only thought about herself. The actress is known to make ridiculously high salary demands, and she's apparently been doing this since before she became a big name in the industry. She's reportedly hired and fired a lot of publicists and assistants over the years, so she really sounds like quite the diva and a horrible boss too. Because of all this, directors and Hollywood execs just don't want to work with her anymore, and honestly I can't really say that I blame them. At number 4, Michael Phelps. Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps is often referred to as the best swimmer of all time, but it seems like his aquatic skills are really the only thing he's got going for him, since apparently he's got a pretty bad attitude and is pretty rude in real life. Michael has done some bad stuff in his life, so people already don't think that highly of him as an individual. Back in 2014, he was arrested for driving under the influence, and speaking of under the influence, Phelps has also been caught with drugs before. Already, this isn't good for his image because being an Olympian, people have a lot of eyes on you. Phelps was reprimanded for his drunk driving and was suspended from swimming for 6 months, but other than that, this scandal was kept pretty under wraps. Now if only they could have put that much energy into Sha'Carri Richardson. On top of this swimmer being a felon, he's also known to not be a team player. Apparently he hides himself away from his other teammates when at competitions like the Olympics instead of being with his team to support them. You would think that being at something like the Olympics, you would want to soak up all that team spirit, but no. Michael wants nothing to do with his team and instead flies solo. Kind of mean if you ask me. At number 3, Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase is known for being in National Lampoon and the show Community, but is also known around Hollywood as being kind of a jerk and starting drama with the people that he works with. There are a bunch of articles, books, and interviews of people talking about their experiences with the actor and how mean he can be. There are even stories in the book Live from New York that detail the times Chase has been mean to staff, writers, interns, and other hosts. Will Ferrell and Bill Murray are among those who have taken a disliking to Chase because of the way that he's treated others. Will Ferrell has said that he doesn't like Chevy because of the way that he treats some female staff members, and Bill Murray and Chevy Chase even got into a brawl backstage of SNL back in the day, where they said some pretty hurtful things to each other because they were kind of comedy rivals on the show. Chevy just doesn't get along with everyone, and he said it's because his fame went to his head, but something tells me that's not the only reason why he starts drama. At number 2, Bill Murray. Bill Murray already has a pretty bad reputation in Hollywood for his poor on-set behavior, so it's no surprise to me to find out that he's had some serious drama with one of his castmates on the set of Charlie's Angels. While filming the movie, Bill Murray was said to have antagonized actress Lucy Liu. When watching the film, you'd think that they were all good friends and on good terms, but in reality, that was quite the opposite. The film set was sort of a hostile environment that caused Bill to take a disliking towards Lucy. Turns out Bill would insult Lucy's talent and acting ability, and on one occasion even said, quote, "I get why you're here, you've got talent, but what in the hell are you doing here? You can't act." Apparently the harassment and bullying got so bad at one point that Lucy tried throwing punches at Bill during one scene because his insults got so bad. This antagonizing went on for the entire duration of the production, and Bill kept on berating Lucy about her presence on set and calling her unprofessional as well. This drama was just so unnecessary.
Number 9, Britney Spears. After having a pretty public mental breakdown, Britney Spears made a spectacle of smearing food across her face in a restaurant. Britney was described as acting weird by fellow staff and celebrities present at the time of the incident. While sitting at her table, Britney started to play dress up with her dinner. While many were left feeling concerned and disturbed by the incident, the staff were quick to check on the star and escorted her from her table and out of the restaurant. Britney would then be later informed that she was no longer welcome in the restaurant or on the hotel grounds itself. Now, her behavior herself wasn't a sin or rude behavior, however, how she portrayed herself in public and how she never issued an apology for her actions definitely made some people raise some eyebrows. Luckily for Britney, after she cleaned herself up, the restaurant lifted its ban of 2 years and she was later pictured celebrating her 28th birthday. Now, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
At number 6, Emma Roberts. Emma Roberts has had quite a few on-set feuds with co-stars. She's had drama with Gabrielle Sidibe, Ariana Grande, and Evan Peters, but the biggest feud that she's had was with Lea Michele on the set of Scream Queens. According to sources, Emma Roberts and Lea Michele had one strong attribute in common, and that was the fact that they were both divas, so while they were working together, they butt heads with each other quite often. Apparently, their fighting got so bad while filming, actress Jamie Lee Curtis had to step in and mediate the hostile situation between Emma and Lea because she was so fed up with their constant bickering while they were trying to work. It was also reported that the actresses would constantly have mean girl moments, making rude and catty comments towards each other almost daily. Rumors of this feuding between them were pretty common in entertainment news while Scream Queens was still in production, showing that things never really died down between the two actresses. It seemed like Emma just caused a heck of a lot of drama with a lot of people on set. At number 4, Ben Stiller. A lot of people think of Ben Stiller as this super funny guy in Hollywood, but just because someone seems great in the public eye doesn't mean that's how they really are behind closed doors. It seems as though Ben Stiller is a nightmare in disguise because he's a tough guy to work with and he causes a lot of trouble on set. People who know or have worked with Ben in the past have exposed some of his bad behavior on set, and it's kind of shocking. According to those who worked with him on the set of the film Tropic Thunder, he was very controlling and mean to just about everyone there. He even reportedly had a meltdown on set when someone brought him his Diet Coke and it didn't have exactly 2 ice cubes in it. He even had someone fired because they didn't put enough sugar in his coffee. On top of that, Ben even forced his assistant to stand out in the parking lot in his designated parking space, even though it already had a sign saying that it was reserved. And to make matters even more hectic, Ben also freaked out on a female assistant he had, going so far as to refuse to come back to set until she was replaced by a male assistant. If all of this madness happened on just one film set, who knows what other shenanigans have gone on elsewhere with him.
Number 2, Jenna Fischer. Now, Jenna actually wasn't kicked out of a restaurant in real life. However, her character Pam in the comedy show The Office was. It all started when Jenna decided to tweet a photo of her pictured in front of the restaurant where she asked if she should try to go in. Pam in the show was so tipsy she continually began to fall out of her chair and displayed some pretty rude behavior. It got to the point that the restaurant owner stated she was no longer welcome back at the restaurant chain ever again.
In at number 10, Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer has legendary status for being one of the rudest and most difficult people to work with in Hollywood. Since the early 1980s, Kilmer was booking gigs left and right, plus he proved to be commercially viable with the major success of the film Batman Forever, which ended up booking him several more roles and perhaps adding to his bad reputation. While working on the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, the director said Val would show up and an argument would happen almost immediately. John Frankenheimer ended up replacing that director after he only worked 3 days with the actor before being fired. Still, even John said, "I don't like Val Kilmer, I don't like his work ethic, and I don't want to be associated with him ever again." In at number 8, Bruce Willis. During a press run for his film Red 2, along with co-star Mary Louise Parker, Bruce was noticeably annoyed that he had to even answer the interviewer's questions. Jamie Edwards from Britain's Magic 105.4 actually called it the most awkward interview he's ever had. Apparently, Bruce was barely present while being interviewed, which led to this super cringe moment.
I never told you this, Jamie. This part is not acting, what we're doing right now. You might be, but we're just selling the film now.
When asked which location he preferred while they were filming the movie, Bruce answered with Istanbul. The problem with that answer wasn't his dismissive tone, the problem was that the film never even filmed there. He just said a place he liked, making that poor reporter's job even more difficult as he tried to maintain his composure.
Number 6, Jamie Kennedy. Jamie Kennedy once helped save a woman in a car crash after getting kicked out of a restaurant in Houston. After performing at the Houston Improv, the comedian decided to head over to the Yard House for some drinks with his friends. However, the management staff at the art house had to ask Jamie to leave and proceeded to escort the star out of the building for using profanity with the wait staff. After leaving the establishment without a fight, Jamie decided he wasn't ready to go home for the night and proceeded to head to a different bar. Around 2:40 a.m., when the star was walking to the next location, a car flipped over up onto the sidewalk where they were walking just 10 feet in front of them. Jamie and his entourage then proceeded to help the two women out of the smoking car. Number 5. Jamie Foxx. Stars witnessed Jamie Foxx get kicked out of a restaurant while he was assaulted at his table. Jamie was reportedly having dinner at the restaurant when a customer approached his table and complained to him that him and his friends were being too loud. When the group proceeded to not care, the person yelled, "You don't want to mess with me? I'm from New York." Jamie then fired back, "F you, I'm from Oakland." The person then began to charge at Foxx, and some witnesses even said Foxx began to fight back and took the person down. Both parties were eventually thrown out of the restaurant for their bad behavior. Number 4, we have Dennis Rodman. Charles Oakley had to once kick Dennis Rodman out of his steakhouse for eating off of other people's plates. Charles said he agreed to meet with Dennis at his steakhouse after the two made an appearance at a Miami event together. However, before he arrived, he got a phone call from his manager telling him to get to the location as fast as he could. When Charles arrived to the location, he looked through the window and saw Dennis eating, then moving to the next table and eating some more. Charles went straight up to Dennis and asked him what he was doing. Dennis responded by saying, "I'm relaxing and trying to entertain." Now, Charles clearly wasn't impressed with the star's action and proceeded to kick him out of the restaurant. He then told the basketball star to never come near him again, destroying their relationship off the court. What Dennis thought was a joke clearly wasn't, and he should have known better than to do that in a high-class restaurant.
In at number 3, Michael Bay.
Crazy ability to put up with Michael Bay.
This has to be all grips on hand with this thing. It is not to move under the tail. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
All right, am I very clear? Yeah. Good.
Not only has director Michael Bay been referred to as a major sexist, but he's also worse than the most feared army general in the world. He treats his sets like a war zone and directs his staff like they are his subordinates that need to be put in their place. Not only that, but when you're filming with Michael Bay, you film on his time. He's been known to show up hours late for shoots, and then the moment that his feet touch the ground, it's just go, go, go from there. He wants everything done fast and leaves no room for joking around or contemplating anything, including how his staff may feel after he berated them for hours upon hours with harassing comments. In at number 2, Justin Bieber.
Fuck out the goddamn way, man. Damn.
Yes, that was Justin Bieber hitting a photographer in his exotic car, showing zero regard for human life. On top of that heinous video, the star has also been known to spit on people he doesn't like, which sometimes actually include his own fans. While staying at a hotel in Toronto with some friends, Justin took to his balcony where hundreds of people were desperately waiting outside to see a glimpse of the star, although he only emerged to hawk a loogie down towards them. After this disgusting act, the star seemed to be pleased with himself, turning to his group of admiring friends to laugh. His impressed friends then joined in as they all crowded around and took a selfie on his phone, clearly showing all of the people behind them that they just spit on. Gross. Last but certainly not least, on our number 1 spot, Shia LaBeouf.
They got cameras everywhere, you dummy. I got more millionaire lawyers than you know what to do with, you stupid. I'm from it, you dummy. Okay.
Aside from the way that he treats police officers when he's drunk, Shia has slowly established himself as the rudest man in Hollywood, especially after that debacle at the Academy Awards with his co-star Zach Gottsagen. While Zach was busy making history as the first person with Down syndrome to present an Academy Award, Shia was busy rushing the poor guy through his moment in the sun. Zach understandably had a difficult time doing the kind of back and forth dialogue with Shia LaBeouf, and fans noticed just how impatient the star seemed to be getting with him. One person took to Twitter to express her complaint, saying, "You're on a national stage and you look annoyed at your co-presenter? You're an actor, Shia LaBeouf, at least act like a decent human being."